Hello, everybody. I am the Magic Man Sam. I am at Rhystic Studies, and you may know me currently from doing an artist study series in which I go in depth on an artist, look at their style, look at their life, and look at the pieces they've contributed to Magic. But I have to tell you the truth. The reason I started this whole series in the first place was because of Mike Linneman's writings over at Gathering Magic. He has a gigantic cache of articles that he's been writing for the last 5, 6, 7 years, however long. And I've always been inspired by them. So my artist study videos have been inspired by Mike's writing, and today we're going to try something different. We're going to branch out and merge our two styles and content into an art review. And this art review is going to be hosted by Mike. He's quiet on the mic, which is rare for him, but I'm going to pass it over to him, let him introduce himself. And we're gonna look at some art today, like snack time style.
It is a little bit like the snack attack, but no, I'm finding that the content of where I'm making. So for people that don't know who I am, I'm Vorthos Mike, and I write on art, magic art. That is my niche. That's really the only thing I write on. And in our community of magic folk, there's very few people that only focus on art, that only focus on flavor, that only focus on a very specific niche that doesn't involve deck building. So I've been looking for colleagues, I look for proteges, I look for people to inspire me. And when you find chocolate, sometimes you got to add peanut butter, and you find an opportunity that there's so many sets now coming out. I mean, especially this summer in 2017, we had Commander, Iconic Masters, Ixalan within weeks. I mean, that amount of release schedule is impossible to get artworks from artists to, do a proper review and talk about those things, mainly because they're not used to that. People are still posting Hour of Devastation artworks from weeks ago.
And that set just it's not even on my radar anymore.
No, it's just gone. So now I'm thinking to say, okay, how can we get information out faster, to talk about sets, to talk about major themes, without needing 2 weeks to simply write an art review. You could write all text, but nobody likes all text. Nobody reads those. And
I sit down and read them all, man.
You might.
That's my lifestyle.
You and 5 other people. but people want to see the art, and they want to know what they can see and what they can look for. So
that's right.
For today, Sam and I have some major points of Ixalan. We also have some minor themes. And we found some standout works. There is no best or worst in any set. Everything that Magic makes is good, base level. Everything's good, and some pieces turn out to be great or standouts or award-winning. So just so we get that out of the way, major point 1. Let's just jump in, Sam.
Yeah, let's do it.
How do you feel about the fusion of the Mesoamerican culture? It's not Aztec. It's not Naya. It's not Incan. It's not Olmec. It's all of them.
Yep, it is all of them. This sort of seems to be the formula for Magic, going from, Theros moving forward, where we have a Greek-inspired set, but it is in a certain time period in Greece. It's an ancient Greek, and you're incorporating all sorts of chronologically inaccurate things into one world because that fits our perception of that world. So I think that the same thing is happening from here. Wizards of the Coast is based in the United States, and we sort of have a tourist gaze down south, and that's kind of what we're looking at, I think.
That's a great point. That's an amazing point. We have a tourist gaze.
Yep.
It's not colonial, and it's not adventuring or exploration, but rather, as we look at Tarkir and we examine what the Ottoman Empire is, which was huge. I mean, huge. It's like went from Greece to Japan. And they're
gigantic.
How do we make Tarkir? It's like, each of the colors can be a different area. Sultai will be Cambodia. Yep. And it's still all Ottoman Empire, and it gives it place, it gives it meaning to do that. And here I'm seeing Sun Empire, you see Aztec, I can feel it. Merfolk, I'm definitely getting more of the Incan feel. Some of the other groups, I'm trying to find those still, and I think we will in the second set more as we can zoom out and step back.
Sure. And it's when you're doing a world like this, you kind of have to go just straight to the whiteboard and ask your team, like, what do you think of when you think of this? The first thing that comes to mind. And so those themes will help shape, before you do any research, they will help shape the visual language and the approach from the get-go, because largely this is a commercial product. So you want to make sure that those expectations that you have and those general ideas of what makes Greece Greece and what makes, Rome Rome and what makes the Inca and the Aztec and the Maya, all those peoples respectively, I think they're going to really feed into those themes. So it's no surprise that we have the Sun Empire and the sun becomes a central theme and colors everywhere become a central theme,
With feathers, which locks in perfectly to, we need feathers for, Aztec animal. Oh, where are they going to get the feathers from? What about dinosaurs?
Yeah, what about dinosaurs? Right, because now we're learning through science that dinosaurs actually had feathers, right?
Right, which is a good segue for yourself, Sam. I'll go dinosaurs.
Yeah,
so we go from Mesoamerican culture, which has great iconographic symbols that look like dragons, which is cool, and they're like, well, what if they were dinos?
This sort of, I think, fits the theme of adventure that a lot of people have been comparing Ixalan to Zendikar in this sort of like rainforest, just go on an adventure with your machete and who knows what you're going to find around the next bush that you whack down, right? So dinosaurs sort of feed into that expectation. Maybe they don't synchronize as well with the Mesoamerican culture theme that establishes the block, but you're right, that is their thread that they used because, again, we're finding out that dinosaurs had feathers, and Jurassic Park didn't know that, back in the 90s, or didn't play into that, and so...
90s kids didn't know. I mean...
They didn't know, man. They were less lizard-like and more bird-like, so you go walk around, the town square, and you see a crow, and suddenly you realize that's like what a velociraptor was very similar to, right? So
that was totally a dinosaur. Instead of Toblerone jumping on his back legs with his short legs, he looks like a mini T-Rex. It's great.
That's right, man. But as a kid, I like to pretend I was a dinosaur. So it does feed into that very elementary level Sammy that loved dinosaurs. And here they are in full force in Ixalan. So the thread is there, and because of that, we have a ton of colors.
How do you feel on dinosaurs as visual theme for new players? Mind you, when I came in back in the day, Shivan Dragon, so boss. Armageddon, unstoppable. Like, how do you recover from an Armageddon? You just lose. Well, you don't, but turns out you can't use your killer bees when you're, Mike on a Boy Scout trip. But... dinosaurs, do you think that it was intentional that they tried to say, okay, well, the land isn't attacking you like it is in Zendikar? Because that really was the threat, is something randomly is going to happen to you, Royal Elemental, it's going to just fly up in the air, you're toast. But here, the threat is tangible, and do you think new players are able to grok that visually easier?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to kind of analyze and assess the dinos. I think people can rally around them. It really fits into the tribal theme, right? So we have a red-green alliance, which is usually beastie and gruely, and
right.
And so it's synonymous within Magic because of that. We have an expectation of red-green being the beasts. So
totally.
So it makes sense that you call it the visual threat, the obvious threat. Yeah, they aren't the dinos that are hiding in the bushes. They're the roaring T-Rexes that are attacking the townfolk, right?
Right. So they still have winged dino birds that can lift you off in the air, which my brother almost named his kid Pterodactyl, which could have been Terry or Dak Linneman, which would have been cool. Terry Linneman, Dak Linneman, you got options, Pterodactyl, right?
Okay, yeah, that's right.
But winged dino bird is less scary than, a Regisaur or some sort of giant alpha creature. But it's also easier to understand, easier to cosplay, easier to make shirts for.
Yeah,
really thinking about branding exercise, it's almost why didn't they do this earlier?
Yeah, Logan at my local game store, who is one of the guys who runs the store, he dressed up in those inflatable T-Rex outfits, right?
As he should.
As he should, absolutely. And he was devoted to that. He stayed in the T-Rex outfit the whole time. So shout out to Logan. But you're right. It is so easy to imagine a dinosaur versus Armageddon. Like
how do you show that as a new player? Because really, I'm enfranchised. I don't think about what's on an intro pack anymore. Now, imagine that when you're looking at all sorts of different things at Target, and your mom picks this up as a fun thing, or your dad picks this up, and it has a dinosaur on it. Like, that's just easy marketing. You don't have to explain that it's Emrakul set. It's just like, oh, it's a dinosaur. Boom.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yep, it's easy. And how about this then? So for the people that don't like dinosaurs, and we are a little more enfranchised, and we bought the Commander product, and we really love our vampire deck, and we know that Ixalan's all about tribes, right?
Sure. So you're talking about scaled up complexity,
yeah,
with the vampire as well. Yeah.
Right. How do we listen, Mike? How do we put vampires on this island? We're already loading it up. What do we do with the vampires?
Okay, so I asked about this to say, oh, all right, these vampires are obviously conquistadors. Like, they thought that through, and that was planned from literally the beginning. That was the first thing. Okay, we need conquistadors. Well, vampires. Like, totally makes sense. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's not technically disrespectful, but it's also not really whitewashing things either. Like, it's pretty honest in that. At the same time, the conquistadors visually, if you've noticed, are not in a position of power. So if you've seen any major paintings about Cortez, about any of the Spaniards, large-scale paintings, it is always shown in preferential placement of the conquering force compared to the people that they conquered. Yeah. And that's also revisionist history, because they didn't just come in and just annihilate people. Often they would have a tribal support here that was like, yeah, let's topple that government. We don't like those people anyway. So they would have locals they would work with. And as soon as the conquistadors were here in real life, they would get rid of their armor right away. They would immediately adapt to the local, immediately get armor that is more fitting to the climate.
Yeah.
And that idea that we think, with the Morian hat, the weird, hat,
sure,
and the armor is really a myth. It was only when they got there. They didn't think of them as gods. That isn't real. But here, Magic says, all right, we're going to play with that and say, all right, how do we get them in there? Well, they're black aligned. All right, that's fine. But they're white aligned. Have we defined white-black anywhere except the Orzhov?
No, I think that's really the analog. That's what I thought of when Commander released and we had white vampires, and then they went double down in Ixalan with them. I think it matches the theme of black-white in terms of the give and receive, or the give-take.
Totally.
Yeah. The lifelink really matches with black-white, and it is a little funky to see a white vampire, but it is always under the guise of it being sort of black. Like, it's not a pure white vampire, It's always in conversation with black as a color and an idea. So, yeah, you have to expand, because just, mechanically you need tribal support in more than one color. It's not like you can just draft the black vampire deck, right?
Well, it's not Torment. We can't do Torment anymore. That's not possible.
No, not possible, man. That was old border. That's history.
That's 90s. Like, nobody even remembers that.
Nah, I don't remember that.
You weren't a 90s kid. But the vampires, to say, like, okay, we need to make them expand. Can we show evil white, which they always struggle to show.
Yeah, true.
Vampires do that without saying, well, they're not evil. Because really, they're not evil in this set. And I think people are understanding that a little better.
You're right.
And Magic has that really explained to say every color can be good, every color can be bad, except white. White is, you just couldn't.
You're right. It is a warring faction sort of situation. They're all these tribes are finding themselves at odds with one another in sort of a parity situation. So I think you're correct in saying that Magic has sold the conquistadors as one of four different, people that are fighting for equal power on this island.
How do you feel on them being, in real life, Catholics of sorts, with some of the iconographic elements? Have you seen any of them?
Like, you're talking about the cathedral ship? Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah, that's one of them, yes.
Uh-huh.
With the giant rose window that is like, I see what you did there.
Yeah. We brought Gothic out to the Caribbean, right?
Right, totally. Like, I saw pieces like Skyblade of the Legion where they have, the perfect elaborate knitting underneath the armor, and I'm just like, man, that's straight up a Catholic robe. That's straight up a Catholic robe. And I like seeing that because it isn't done poorly or disrespectfully or randomly. It is very intentional of, all right, we're going to copy this, but not that. We're going to have a scepter in Sanguine Sacrament, but it's going to feel like the rose, like the symbol. All of that is going to be aligned. And I want to see the board that has like, all right, Catholic things, yes, no. Yes, no,
that's right.
Where they just go through all of them.
Yeah. Even, I mean, again, our analog is the Orzhov, and that is very centralized in a theology, like a monotheistic sort of situation. So all the language that corresponds to the Orzhov of having like pontiffs and clerics and etc. I think that does carry over, and that just makes it, like I said before, synonymous within Magic. You kind of have to keep your, you have to keep your ideas similar across multiple sets,
which is hard, except when you put in a green merfolk and the internet loses its mind.
Jeez, this I can't stand. I'm not gonna. We might be at odds.
Bring the heat. Bring the heat.
Yeah,
bring the heat. Okay. What is wrong with it?
This really bothered me when the green awakening merfolk was spoiled, because I understand. So I think I'm at odds with myself. You see, I understand that Magic wants to play into a trope, which is the fish people, right? The mermaids, the mermen, the merfolk. When I think of that, I think of underwater civilizations. These people that have created a life under the water are more fish than man, but are man enough that we can relate to them in that aspect, right?
The Atlantis myth, all of those things, right?
Totally. But to me, a merfolk belongs in the water. That is its fundamental place. It's the same as if you were to create a bird people and then put them in the water, right? The birds should be in the air, and the merfolk should be in the water, and the humans should be like walking around on the earth, and the dwarves should be in the earth, right? These are just the fantasy tropes. But I understand, this is where I'm at odds with myself. I understand that Magic wants to create its own sort of, carve out its own idea of this fantasy trope, right? That's why they have dragons with always having arms instead of just being legs and wings,
which would be a drake. A drake, mind you. Yes. No arms is a drake, and of as you learn about language, a worm, WYRM or WURM, is all a dragon. Like everything was the dragon back in the day. Like there was no differentiating, and I'm struggling to see this. Okay, these are water-based creatures in a tropical environment, right? So the water is not around them, it is enveloped in them by humidity, right? Because it's, that's how their skin stays, slimy, and that, I get that.
Sure.
I struggle to see that the jade they're wearing is heavy. You can't go in the water with that because you will sink like a rock.
Oh, totally.
So I'm seeing things like the Sentinel, Jace's Sentinel, and I'm like,
oh God, of course,
he's gonna sink straight to the bottom. So is that still a merfolk, or is it a merfolk discussing evolution, which is a slight tie to dinosaurs there? And I'm like, I kind of see how you're looping that together as you look closer. I just wonder if this is going to be the planar chaos.
I see.
Will they try the merfolk in green one time, and they're like, it's going to be hard to do that again.
Mechanically, I think it's similar to white vampires. Like we can't just have mono blue merfolk. We need merfolk, and the best analog is green because now they walk on the land. But
merfolk are white though. Like
they're also black. They're also red. Like these guys are just in every color. They really are the tribe that has been lost, or are too exploratory that they can't figure out that they just should be back in the water. Right? They're fish. That's what I think.
They're fish human, and the question is how far fish did they go? If you've seen some of the concept art for Lorwyn, you'll see they're more humanoid in face, but as soon as they go to Shadowmoor, they get straight up a fish face. Straight up like walleye. You're gonna eat it $12.99 Friday special. You know you're gonna be there.
Sig is a catfish. The blue black Sig.
Totally, 100% he is. Yeah. But to see that, to say, okay, they understand that they're changing in one plane. But here, I see that it opens the door for more blue-green commanders, blue-green players, and I like that for the casual crowd, though. in how our community works, the few that need to play Merfolk as a competitive deck are going to drown out that casual crowd.
You're right.
And the casual crowd is really what drives the business. They're the ones buying the commander deck. They're the ones that are like, oh, there's a cool jade sculpture on this Jace Sentinel, and not thinking through like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But that's also realism in our fantasy, which why are we even asking about that, right?
That's right, dude. Magic's an escape, man. We can't have all the hardcore themes of life have to invade the game. You gotta be playful with it sometimes, right?
To that point, there are rules, though. There are rules that they sometimes break, white vampires, green merfolk, and other rules they have to invent as they go. So this idea that the planeswalkers are trapped there is new.
Yes, this is gigantically new.
Just planeswalkers, the entire concept, we as the player are a planeswalker, and you borrow creatures from everywhere, and you're able to bounce between places, never tied down to just one plane. And here, it's, you got to figure out the thing, or you can't leave.
Yep. Yeah, so what's going on with this? Because I'm not well rehearsed. I understand that Jace is, visually we understand this. It's plastered on the cards. Jace is stuck here, right?
He is stuck here, which we've seen in the story spotlight. And Vraska is also stuck here, and Angrath is stuck here. And whether they're all aware of it, we don't know. Okay. But what we do know is, back in the day, back in the mid-90s, when you read Arena, the novel, which is actually pretty good, it's surprisingly okay. All of the planeswalkers, when they would meet each other, would often immediately attack or flee, because they were all basically demigods or gods.
Sure.
If you found one, you usually wanted to kill them because they had artifacts and mana available. It was incredibly dangerous to run across them.
Okay.
Then the mending happened. They all became powered down. They were no longer omnipotent. They were no longer able to do whatever they wanted. And that forced our new narrative of, oh, they can't just kill each other all the time. They need to be cooperative. They need to find solutions that we can relate to as players. And by forcing them onto a plane they can't leave, it forces interaction. That they have to find a solution, and Vraska, it has to not kill Jace, and by doing that we get character depth. And, my story spotlight that I got to preview of Jace falling off a cliff, and Vraska actually has feeling. That she actually cares about someone other than herself, being a black-lined villain of sorts. That is so high-level art direction, like crazy high, where it's, okay, these aren't going to be a random person in an army. We're going to show them together in cards, and rather than just being a battle, it will be, love and cooperation and innovation. All of those things are so hard to show.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
In a game about battle. I mean, how do you show gaining trust?
Yeah, true.
How do you do that? Like, shaking hands, like eating food together? Like, it makes no sense in a game about a battle. But by having a theme to say, okay, they're all stuck here. You can show those things. You can have a contemplative scene, and it makes sense, and it's believable. Players won't think, well, why is this here? It's, I know why, because I can understand what's happening. So,
that makes sense.
Shockingly good idea of how they loop that, because that didn't need to be here. That did not need to be a part of the theme, the set, at all. It could have been they were just looking for an item, and that was it. So, saw that. You found something in the set, and I want to talk about it.
Okay.
You found your boy.
Oh, yeah. This is my boy.
Not Jesper. No. Not Jesper number 1.
Right.
Jesper number 2.
Yes.
You got to tell me about this, because you did a video on this guy, and I have some of his color studies I own, and he is cool. Tell me, what did you find?
Listen, you're talking about demigods earlier, and all I can think of is Jesper is in this set. He is all up in this set. Listen, we did not see a lot of Jesper in Amonkhet. He was a little bit in Kaladesh, right?
Right? He's been quiet.
I was fearful that they kind of moved away from him because his style is so unique and whimsical and Dungeons and Dragons-y, and like, do we want to keep that in our brand? I don't know. And suddenly, out of nowhere, seven pieces. Are you seven?
Seven. Traditional painter. Traditional painter. Seven.
Michael, 7 pieces. How do you? This is a grand slam for Jesper. This is his set. He's all up in this. He is a minor theme of the set, along with planeswalkers being trapped, green morpho, black white vampires. Jesper icing is here. So I love Jesper. Jasper Edgesing, you know my guy.
Jasper
Edgesing, yeah, man.
We need to have a full video on just pronunciation of names.
I thought about that, honestly. Like, it's not Luis, it's Lius, right? Lasahiu, right?
Yep. It's
People
the
always
same
call
as
him Luis.
Randy Gallegos. It's Gallegos. You got to know those things. And same thing with Jesper.
That's right. Yes,
so I want to see what you think about his pieces, because there's one that is...
Oh, you love this one. You really love this one. And I love it because it's a departure from his usual style, which is basically the other 5 or 6 cards, which is a very funky sort of beast that is really whimsical, charging towards the scene, charging away, sideways towards it. And he likes his colors, his light reds and his beiges. Those are his motif for a tan sort of like red creature. And then his blue and green creatures are usually, he likes his violets and his blues, right? So there's a certain scene that you're pointing out that you tweeted about, and you called it a monumental art achievement or something along those lines, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so hit me with this knowledge. Basically, the composition again is straying away from Jesper's usual style, which is flying around beast. That's it, right?
Yeah. Usually it's just a camera angle move, and this shows a lot of where he is in his development as an artist. So
that's right.
For people that don't know, some of the great artists that came through Magic and have left already, Dan Dos Santos, Donato, Giancola, that eventually they weren't just getting amazing cards. They weren't just getting the Mirari. They were getting commons. Jesper made Colossal Dreadmaw, and this card is so good. It's just a 6/6 for 6 trample, whatever. You'll play it in limited. And then a couple years from now, you may forget it. But what you won't forget is how good the artwork is.
Okay.
It is so phenomenal. The main focal point of the piece is the boat.
Mm-hmm.
The main point is the scale bird to show how big the dinosaur is. That has not happened. To say like, oh, we're going to show, the scale thing. That's going to be the central thing of the art. And then you need to stare at it closer to see the blues and greens in the dinosaur's like mane. You get to see the hands as you stare closer. It forces you into a frame with both sides, pushing you in almost like an old school stereoscope paid for 10 cents where you peer in at a circus. I will be shocked if this doesn't win an art award this year. I will be utterly shocked because it is everything they want.
That's right.
They want fantasy creatures. They want a scene. They want a narrative. They want a story. And here, it has everything. The guy jumping off the ship. The person at the top in the observation deck is going to be jumping off the ship in a second.
Oh, yeah.
The tilt of the neck in order to get a big chomp in. Going diagonally down and to the right. Even the trees that are trees upon rock, like a moss, are just perfectly done. No, I there's not enough time for me to talk about every aspect of this. Even the color palette, where there's 15 colors here. Where normally, for a card art illustration, you're gonna limit it to some variety. And here he kept adding, kept giving us depth, kept showing us more things into the scene. And I wish this was a mythic rare. I really do. That everyone would appreciate it more. And in writing art reviews, I often come to that point to say, do I talk about the Planeswalker? Because the Planeswalkers are usually good artworks. Everything's good. It's usually great.
Sure.
But these are the things people will miss.
Yep.
That they will not necessarily see if they're making a constructed deck about, I don't know, dinosaurs or something from an Enraged deck. This you just won't use, so you'll never see it. And it's it's such a phenomenal work that I hope people gain their favorite artists and look through those pieces. When Therese makes 4 cards in a set, that they'll see the 4th. And that's part of our job as people that work with the art of this game, is to highlight and to remind, to say, no, look closer. No, take 2 more seconds. Just at the draft, just look at it just a little longer before putting it face down into your green deck. There's a reason. But you did a study on him. What else did you see in his pieces this go around?
Well, this one, continuing with this, one of his main sort of approaches to composition is finding the focal point and then making everything outside of that very less detailed, and this renders the painting more legible, right? So similarly to what you were saying, everything is focusing our view towards the pirate ship, and then we move away from the pirate ship and look right back to the dino, and the dino is looking at the pirate ship, so it has this nice little conversation, this back and forth of...
It's a narrative. It's a built-in narrative.
Right, yeah, and we know that the pirates just found out that they're being stalked, right? That's the point of this dinosaur. He's not charging, he's just kind of creeping behind them, he's ready to eat, and he's about to strike, but he's had to be a little bit stealthier than maybe he's used to. So that being said, the way Jesper makes this is the pirate ship is very detailed, and the dinosaur's face is very detailed. And if you move 3 inches away from that dinosaur's face onto his mane, you'll see all these very loose brush strokes, and even the outside where his arm is just like outlined, sort of comic book style, but that doesn't even look the same. It almost looks like a different painting from what is going on in his face. And so the effect of that is we look at his face and concentrate on that, because that's where our direct image, or our eyes will go, and our peripheral vision is blurred out anyway. So he just emphasizes that difference. So that's an aspect of his style that comes up in a lot of his work, and he wrote about it on Muddy Colors. I'm not just making this up. This is how he composes scenes. So it was nice to see that come back, but in a deeper way, right? It wasn't just concentrating on somebody's face and that's it. It was to tell this goofy, fun, whimsical narrative of, hey, pirates, I'm ready to eat you. Right?
Oh, biscuits! Like, you could even see it in the hard line on the edge of the ship.
Oh,
right
yeah.
in the middle, right next to the dinosaur's eye. It feels as though it's a Photoshop layer, so it looks almost suspended, so that you get to choose the depth. You get to choose how far this dinosaur is back. But since people are jumping off, it's pretty close.
It's pretty close, yeah. It is pretty close. So that's Jesper, slam dunk. Go look at his other pieces, but I think you sold us on the Colossal here. And it's going to be harder to look at card size because there are these little things that are going on. So we invite you to always look up the high-res image. That's the point of this, right?
It is the best. For people that are always looking for those, check the Twitter hashtags, MTG Art, hashtag MTG Art, and then often the set name. So in a search bar, you do MTG Art, and then MTGXLN, and many of us post the artworks just to get them out there and, very frankly, an archive for a lot of us, so that you can search it and you can find things pretty quickly.
Yeah, and this set, you have been on game, dude. I don't understand. You've been on this insane grind of posting 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different new high-res images every freaking day, dude. I think you have almost the entire set cataloged.
Almost the entire set, because it's so important to know that, because eventually you have to get these artworks out there, and artists don't always know when they're released, or they're assuming, oh yeah, Hour of Devastation just came out, and it's like, oh buddy, there's been 2 of them since then. And they're like, oh really? They're like, oh, biscuits, I'm sorry.
That's right.
And I'm like, no, it's fine. You live in Singapore, it's not a big deal, bud. Just post it sometime in the next week. And for people that may not go to ArtStation, they may not go to DeviantArt, they may not be friends with them on Facebook because they often have a 5,000 friend limit. Sometimes people just don't get to see those. So it's an accessibility thing and a longer term, so we can search back in a year or 2 and still find them.
That's right, but some artists are active on Twitter. I encourage you to follow those who are posting their own high-res images, and then we'll retweet them and we'll talk about them, and we get to engage with them. One of those artists, I'm setting you up here. Mike, you ready for the slam dunk? This is Jason Rainville's Admiral Beckett Brass. Jason posted this on Twitter, and along with a comment on Facebook, he confirmed that this was inspired by his mother. So we have a badass pirate legend that is that is obviously older in age and connects the artist to the art, the personal life with the fantasy. So this is one of your standout pieces. What's going on? Hit me.
Hit you hard. For this set, a very tactical change you can see is, there's women pirates. Like, that's easy base level. You're like, just like Sisay from Weatherlight, which is another name that people pronounce wrong. It's Sisay. No, it's Sisay. Women pirate captains. Happened. It's very much a Magic thing. Since the Weatherlight, Jared was not the captain of the ship. You're welcome. And here we had Captain Lannery Storm, and here it's an older woman, which having diversity in the game isn't just people of color, isn't just age, it's a variety of things that you get to choose from. And having this in there, Ted, Jason felt confident enough to say, I want an older woman pirate. She's a captain. Why would she be young? That makes no sense. And an art director having the confidence to say, yeah, absolutely, that totally makes sense. Do it live. And having those ability to do that is a pushback on people saying, well, it's so stringent, you have to only paint within the lines.
Right.
And that's not true at all. Someone like a Howard Lyon does it all the time where he's like, well, I suggested this other thing. Is that fine? Like, yes, Howard is always fine. Whatever you suggest is always great. But here, I like seeing that it's only the figure. Like, yes, there are people in the background. Yes, there's splintered wood there, but you're not really looking at those because they're not important. The only thing that's important is for someone that has been around in the game a while, like Adrian on Twitter, she would look at this and say, oh, it's a piece for someone like me.
Yep.
It's a piece that I get to have an access point to, and it's a legendary creature for Commander. Like, that is such a smart way to go. It's like when they built Kaya for a black woman planeswalker. It's the exact same thing, except it just fit the thematic aspect of who's going to run the pirate ships? Well, why don't we just do all women? How does that sound? Cool. I want to see that. One thing to note, the two people flying in from the background, one of those are Jason Rainville.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
He did reference of himself, and the other person is his uncle, which is comical.
Hey, all right. So you could just bring this to the family reunion at Thanksgiving. You know, and hey, this is us now. Look at us go.
It's going to be in the Christmas card. I mean, no question.
That's amazing.
I don't know if Canadians do Christmas cards. I think they still celebrate Christmas.
All right.
But super fun to see some of those aspects. And for people that don't know, if you have an artist that you know, you will eventually end up in a piece. Like, you really have no choice.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if you have an artist that you know, likelihood that they're in 60% of their pieces already. So you have to kind of look around for that.
Yeah, Therese Nielsen, best example is Force of Will, right? It's her.
Yep.
And you see those consistently elsewhere. It's just you sometimes may forget what these people look like, what they do. So it's more of a concept that I really enjoy and I'm happy to see. And anytime there's elaborate stuff everywhere like rope, I think it's just a fun cosplay advantage that they can do and really have a great time doing it. Because this is a cosplay for an older woman, which is fantastic.
Yeah, Arlen Cord was along those same lines, right?
Exactly.
Arlen Cord was there and everyone celebrated Arlen for that reason. It's just nice visually, too, to like... It's a nice change of pace. That's all I like.
It really is. I want to go to the controversy, Sam. I want to bring the heat in why you like the merfolk. Why you like the blue merfolk so much from this set.
So yes, of course. The elitist in me says blue merfolk should be blue. My first standout piece here is Herald of Secret Streams. Merfolk Warrior, rare, 2/3, creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. This is the first time I've read the text of this card. I don't care anymore about the game. I want the art, right? I know the art visual. That's right. Got to get that taste.
Give me that taste. The best part's the taste.
Taste. All right, so tasty. This is tasty because right now I've just finished my big research project on David Palumbo, and I'm starting to tie these things together, the visual motif of having just a very clearly defined character, and in the background is a sort of misty Kev Walker, David Palumbo type background that isn't very noisy. It's just very simple. So Sarah Winters really delivered on that. We have a very, almost like cotton candy-like color scheme going on here. The merfolk has got this bright, almost like fuchsia pink accents on a blue body, and the waterfalls behind him look like mist, look like air. But I love the composition here because it's so legible on a card. You know, this is exactly what the card wants, and I think the execution is awesome. It's the textures on that waterfall behind the merfolk really give this idea that it is emerging very silently from the waterfall and ready to come attack you. So yeah, this is the merfolk that I imagine in terms of magic, and it sort of harkens back to Talrand, which is one of my favorite cards and merfolks in the game. And so yeah, there's some visual parody with older merfolks and can I say that merfolks? Just merfolk, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's merfolk either. It's not an I plural. No, I think it's just folks.
Okay, just folk. So yeah, I like it because it's simple and it's quiet, and the colors are really popping here.
I think you're showing some of your bias too.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. This is bias.
You like quieter pieces.
I do. Yeah, they're chilling. Yeah.
You like it when there isn't a ton of noise.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see a work like a Herald here, which, you know, Sarah's phenomenal. She's really quite good at this. She's able to have that restraint is your jam.
It's important for me. Yeah, it is, because ultimately that's how we're engaging with the art most of the time, is through cards, right? So again, I'm on this shtick because I want the card to be legible. Sarah's killing it here with the legibility, and it's very sly. It fits the persona of the creeping. This is the threat that we think of when we think of like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, the velociraptors that hunt and cooperate and are in the shadows. You know, this is the actual threat, where the merfolk are the ones that are behind the trees and in the water and can come up and assassinate you. So I like that visual motif here.
Okay, so if you're into the quiet, like you obviously like Jesper because of, you know, the focal point and really forces your eye to a narrative. What do you think about Rowdy Crew? Rowdy Crew, Steve Prescott.
That's right.
He is the playful, understands the history of 1990s folios, understands that is part of magic, and art directors keep commissioning him. This has no focal point. Now, you could argue and say it's the amulet, but it's not. I'm looking at this little monkey nugget trying to steal something, being a good boy,
you know,
and
yeah.
I'm seeing so much here that really you understand there's 5 people in the picture. And that's about all you can understand from the card. Yet, could this be different than Herald of Secret Streams? Like, this is the polar opposite.
Oh, totally.
So busy, so much going on, but yet, it is amazing.
Yes, it is good. That's my conflict of interest, because, like, you know, I also did a video on Vincent Proce, who always invites you to look at the larger image and find all the little gems. So it depends on kind of the way you're engaging with the art. Are you engaging with it through the cards? And at that place, you sort of lose out on the details that you are awarded if you go out and search the high-res image, which is what Prescott delivers on here, because this is something you could print at 18 by 24, put it in your room while you're all playing cards or poker or whatever, and look up and have a new experience every single time you do, right? The monkey here trying to steal something, you'll notice that the pirate in the far left corner is halfway through an apple, and you kind of wonder, like, oh, these guys have been here a fairly long time, but not long enough for her to finish her apple, right? So this was them colluding in the pirate ship, arguing over treasure, and we have a pirate in the background with a skull on her eye patch, right? These are all the tropes that are playing. And then suddenly you see that there's a drake on her shoulder. Like, these are all things that come together once you look at the thing. And that's, you know, hearkening back to what you said earlier, we want you to look at the art longer. And this is one of those pieces that rewards you for doing so.
I think that these pieces are needed. If you look overall at a set. So for people that are unsure what art directors do, one, they help pieces become better. You know, they choose the right sketch that fulfills what the card description needs, obviously. But less obvious is they look at a whole set and say, okay, what are we doing on a full global scale? I mean, how many people are looking right? How many things that are easy to understand immediately, you know, one figure, quiet background, or many figures, and how do you balance those? That is intentional from the front, because you choose artists that are, you know, noisy or busy and then quiet, and you try to have this bell curve of them. Like, if this set doesn't have pieces by Steve Prescott, you may not know, but there will be something missing.
Yeah.
When you go through to say, well, I want to know more about how the pirates interact. Like, we have Admiral Beckett Brass, and she's a fantastic pirate, but what are they like? Instead of a portrait, like, well, what do they do? What are they into? So things like this, and especially since this is a traditional painting by Steve, these are things that if someone's building a pirate deck, you buy that painting immediately. Immediately.
Yeah.
So things like that I love to see, and that playfulness that Steve brings to his set, I'd love to see with more artists, and I think we're going to see with the Return of the Core set, because it's the one place that you can deviate with humor and still be on brand.
He's your boy. He's the whimsy. He's still alive and kicking and killing it with the art game. If you squint your eyes, Mike, just squint your eyes and look at this painting. That's one way you can look at a painting. You got two light sources, and they're two entirely different colors, right? It's a very warm light source, top left, very cold light source, top right.
Top right, yeah.
And this is a masterpiece in terms of just juggling those two light sources, because far right pirate has a lot of blues in his cloak and his headpiece, and then far left pirate is really breathing in that warm light. So in terms of just throwing down a light source and having to, you know, deal with all the shadows and deal with all the color tones that reflects that, and the pirate in the very front is mostly darkened because he is in front, you know, he is in front of this light source from our perspective. So that by itself is enough to exalt this painting. So
it's very hard to paint this. Just for people to know, when you see a student work, maybe some Magic fan art, how they would paint this is they would give more of the figures the same space. So each would get a quarter, or each would get a sixth of the painting, and they'd be in very similar light. So it looks flat. That's when you see a digital painting and you say, well, it just doesn't look very lifelike. It's because they didn't integrate light into the piece to shoot people in the foreground, midground, background.
Yep.
And Steve here did it perfectly. Even with the table curved, you can immediately get a sense of place.
Yep, agreed.
Can't say more wonderful things about this. I've got a few more, but I think you have one of my favorite artists that you saw here, and you haven't done a video on him yet. Trust me, I know. But he understands, and we're gonna on an animal theme here. You'll go first, and then I'll go. What is it about Lars in this set that feels so right? This is
Lars Grant West firing on all cylinders. I chose this painting because a primary goal of Ixalan is dinosaurs. And you know what? Some dinosaurs are gigantic. So how do we get a sense of scale? You go Shadow of the Colossus. You make them blend into the background. They're so gigantic and massive that they are matching the atmospheric perspective. You'll see on Looming Altosaurus, the card, the 1/7 vanilla
Even
creature.
Even the color is muted because of atmosphere.
That's right, yeah. Half of his tail is blending right into the blues, right? And his neck is sort of emerging. That's the centerpiece of his type of dinosaur, his species, the Brontosaurus or whatever, right? The long necks.
Right.
You've got scale pterodactyls flying around, right? Typically, cool. I'm not one for scale birds. This painting works without it still, but because they're pterodactyls, that's great. It's on theme. You got little raptors running away on the bottom right. Look at the curve. You've got a stream running through the middle here. The curve of the right side of the painting doesn't make sense unless you're using a huge, gigantic fisheye lens. You know, like a 8mm fisheye lens. Mm-hmm. All of that curve points back to the curve of the neck. It's just a huge piece, and you know what? Actually, it is kind of good. I lost to it and sealed. None of my dudes could get through. It's a great blocker. It is really just Maze of Ith, honestly. It's a Dino Maze of Ith.
And made for, obviously, Doran Siege Tower, so then can swing in 7/7, like
that's
established.
Right.
Good for casuals all day. And this idea of the fisheye lens, this isn't the first time we've seen it in this set, either. You know, Zach Stella, for Raider's Wake, also used a fisheye lens.
True, yep.
Now, if you really want to nerd out, think about why they'd have a fisheye lens in a pirate set.
Ah, yes, Michael. Yes, I get it. It is the what do you call them? The spyglass, right? Is that what it is?
We are supposed to be looking at this as if we are the pirate. Notice it's a white creature, which pirates aren't. So we are a pirate looking at this dinosaur saying, yeah, we're not going this way.
That's right. That's right. Everything else is running away from it, you know?
Totally. The same as us seeing Raider's Wake, where there's two ships kind of curved out, you know, some person, you know, standing there, and savagery all around us. We are a pirate from a distance looking and saying, yeah, I'm not going to get part of this.
Nope.
That decision is made so far beyond the card game. That is art directors looking and saying, hey, I see what you're doing here. Keep doing that at sketch stage. I think you're starting to look into a fisheye lens. If you add a tree on the left side, that will push it more. If you do it on the right side, as you're continuing to do, make a tree on that ridge, and it'll push it even more to the guy. So we look left, and if people sit down and wonder, how are we seeing this? They get an additional Easter egg.
That's right. And do you know how big this painting is? Because, like you said, Lars paints gigantic. Something for Modern Masters, I forget, maybe the Centaur was a huge painting, which is not very commonplace for traditional painters because it requires more time and paint, right? So
the biggest thing is time. It takes so much longer to dry for oil paint. Oil paint takes days to dry. God. Lars, he didn't post this one yet for size. Why? Because he's probably bringing it to ILXCon, and ILXCon is a large art convention for fantasy, sci-fi. It's called imaginative realism is the fine art term, and it's west of Philadelphia, and it's mid-October, and he's going to bring it there. So do we know how big it is? No. Is it going to be at least 18 by 24 inches because it's Lars? Yes.
Yes.
He paints big on everything. So for
that's what I love about him. He paints big, and he has a huge freaking creature, right? It makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And his background working at the zoo, he has skulls everywhere in his studio. He has a 3D printer, which he's printed some, you know, endangered species skulls. So for reference, because obviously you can't get like some random like creature. So he has to download the things online. Gets a skull, maybe add clay to it, and makes a maquette to study the light. Like, the amount of work he puts in is shockingly high.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome.
So, I'm really happy you pointed this out, because he definitely needs more love as a creature artist.
That's right.
And on that note, I want to talk about a new guy. So this new guy, Jonathan Kuo, made the card art Rampaging Ferocidon. And I want to point this out, mainly because Jonathan teaches classes on literally creature reference. Like, he teaches on this.
Oh, cool.
That Concept Art Academy, you can go to his class and learn how to paint reference. Because obviously showing muscle on animals and legs that look realistic is hard. It's so hard. Because you can't just go into a random field and be like, I need to paint a dinosaur. Like, you can't. Like, right. You can't even get a chicken. Like, it doesn't work right. They move too quick. So... being him able to say, all right, I'm going to show an actual looking raptor in a scene that feels traditionally painted, but it's digital because he's traditionally trained, classically trained.
Yep.
So if you look at this piece, I mean, you know, it's a dinosaur, it's cool. Check out some of where he decided to go more digital or less digital in his application of brushstrokes. So top left, that looks like a Dave Palumbo background.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Big, thick, boom, 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 boom. Change paint a couple times, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's a faraway atmospheric perspective of a mountain. Great. And then you look at some of the cutout of where the Triceratops is laying there, and you're like, oh, it's clearly digital because it feels more flat. Mm-hmm. And he plays in between the two to show us not only depth, to show us an evocative feeling of, well, this is a Triceratops head, but really I'm using minimal strokes to show that. And instead, again, like your boy Jesper, tightening up the face of the actual Ferocidon to give us some sort of focal point.
Yep.
I want to see more from him. I would love if he could get some strong creatures in other colors. Obviously, Rampage and Ferocidon, 2 in a red, 3-drop, 3/3 menace. Players can't gain life. Turns out is really good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when you just put more creatures into play, and it deals the damage to that creature's controller. Now, I play Infect in Modern, the Infect build. If you give this creature Infect and drop 5 creatures, he deals 5 poison damage to you.
Oof.
And just, they can't gain life. There's nothing they can do to stay alive otherwise. But flavorfully that you could see, okay, well, this is, red-green. He's on Ixalan. That's cool. But then when you can look at the constructed playability and say, what if this dinosaur had Infect? How terrifying would that be? Where it's like, if this thing gets Phyrexianized, biscuits. Trouble.
Gosh. Listen, for those of you who don't know, to use Mike's catchphrase, which is a great catchphrase, for those of you who don't know, Mike's one quirk is that he is a sprinter, all right? I'm a distance runner, so we're at odds with one another. We don't understand each other's sports. We're trying our best. Mike thinks he can PR a 5K and drop 2 minutes off his PR. He doesn't know what running really is. But this is why Mike plays Infect, because he's a sprinter. He likes 10 better than 20. It's all or nothing.
I like going in hot, and I like art that reflects that speed.
Right.
That reflects that immediate fear. Yeah, and if I drop this card down, it's not, it's a red card, it's going to be tough. It's, that's a raptor. This is going to be real bad.
Yep.
Just by visually showing this as a raptor creature with an already dead animal. If it was just a raptor, you're like, okay, fine. But here this is going to be bad for you. You're going to be a Triceratops in a second and a half. Phenomenal way to put an art description in there to show the power of a card, which we don't always get to see. Sometimes it's just a figure with quiet, smoky background. Here it's, you can't miss this. You have to pay attention to this card. And the menace art rule, there's one in the background. So is it a 3/3 or is one a 2/2 and one's a 1/1? You'll often see this when there's a human that's a 2/2. It's because there's 2 humans, and you'll see one in the background, which I always look for those sort of things, because then you can start to learn how they value from an art direction standpoint, how strong things are. Like Thraben Hounds, it's a 3/5, because there's 3 dogs. So 3 dogs equal 3/5.
Yep, 1/2s. Yeah, same with Keanu Santiro, right? They're a 2/8, so that means
100%.
that they're both 1/4s, correct? So they're all defense. Yep, makes sense.
Or one's like a 2/2 and the other one's like, but...
Yes, a 0/8, yeah.
Yeah, 0, like, okay. 0/6. Fun thing to play with that. I like this piece. I just want to highlight him because he will probably be making more amazing creatures.
Yep.
And to be on the lookout for him.
Well, you talked about Palumbo. I want to go to Palumbo. Yeah, Dave, our boy Dave.
Why we're mentioning that is that there's 2 Palumbos.
Yes.
They're brothers.
Yes.
Which Sam didn't know.
I did know this, Dave.
No. So, Anthony and David Palumbo, he didn't know this at all. He's lying. They have a pedigree, these brothers. So, their mother is Julie Bell, who is a phenomenal fantasy artist in her own right. And she remarried Boris Vallejo, which also a titan. These are titans of fantasy fine art work. Like if you go and see a bunch of Tor books, the covers, you'll see their names. Period. Yep. So to say that your entire family is involved in that, even Anthony Palumbo is his girlfriend is Winona Nelson, who's also a magic artist. Can you imagine some of their conversations?
It's like the Gronkowskis.
They really are.
They just pumped, like the Mannings. They just pumped out people that are so good because Archie was a football player and suddenly his sons are godlike. Same idea.
They're all phenomenal. The piece, I'm guessing, Sam, the piece you're talking about is Vanquish the Weak. That's the one. I'm thinking Vanquish the Weak, which sold on Facebook in less than 12 hours without him promoting it. The painting sold. Like minutes, people were yelling about how good this piece was. It's it's not something we see a lot in Magic anymore. It's violent.
Yes.
Someone just smoking a pirate, and all of a sudden the skull is gone. Seems bad.
Yep.
But it's one of your quieter pieces, and I saw one thing on this is the upper left. Like, erase everything else in the piece, and just look at the upper left rigging, and think of J.W. Turner.
Oh, yeah.
1800s naval art, in which they had to show via oil paint, because obviously acrylic paint wasn't around. How do you show rigging? How do you show realistic wood that people understand what it is? And he just hid this in here. That you're just looking at the skull and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I like skulls too. And not stepping back and seeing, oh my God, you are so good.
Oh, yeah.
I have a piece of his. I have a Pyxis of Pandemonium, which is, Pandora's box. And he hides these things, these like master studies in like a corner of a piece. And you're like, oh, that makes sense. And then you see, oh, you're basing this on an 1850s master that, unless you have the art history knowledge to know, and even then, it's like, I've seen this before, I don't know where. He'll talk about it on a blog, and then you're like, oh yeah, he's real good. He's real good.
Oh, he's real good. And to play into that, this is sort of, I posted this a couple days ago, this is sort of the pirate trope that I enjoy more, which is a more subdued sort of lots of wood and lots of woody textures and colors, right? Lots of light browns, dark browns, blacks, because these guys are wearing leather, and
right.
And they have just in this piece specifically, this pirate had a sort of red sash, but it wasn't bright red. It wasn't just gigantically neon sort of.
It's like a burgundy.
Red. It's a burgundy, yeah. It's a deeper, very deep tone. So these harken back to the masters who were painting for Treasure Island and were using these similar sort of
100%.
Motifs of browns, darks, dark browns, light browns, whites, and maybe a little hint of red. But mostly those are the colors, right? Pirates are not associated with green. We're not going to have a lot of greens.
Nope.
And the only blue that's here is blended into the grayish sort of smoky background. So for me, in terms of a color study, this looks a lot like what I expect in terms of pirates, right? They are the wooden barrel and rope of fantasy tropes. So
that you can't outdo that. You can't make pirates colorful. It just doesn't work. People don't get that.
Yep.
So here, exceptionally done. I see the narrative here beyond the master study in the corner. The narrative of the vampire coming in, and she's appearing out of nowhere because of the palette. She's using the same color scheme as the actual ship she's on.
Yep.
So you could see that this was, whoa, random, came out of nowhere. And she just kind of appeared, and she has a gracefulness that the vampires are given. They're conquistadors, but they're not jerky. They're not slow. They are very graceful, and that's intentional. And just by showing off a hand motion, you get that. And that's a great way to reinforce who a theme is while doing just a beautiful painting, no question.
Yep. And his looser brushstrokes really fit with the smoky,
they do
coming off of his head, and
I bet it's thick too. I bet it's just thick paint.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's awesome. It's
just
sweet.
You want to just put a frame around it, no matte, just so you can just stare at the brush strokes. Maybe put it at eye level around a corner in your home, so you can see it every time. Those are the best ones to do there. You mentioned one thing. We were on dinosaurs. We left dinosaurs. We need to come back to dinosaurs.
That's right.
So narrative element of this Vanquish the Weak, obviously one popping up out of nowhere, two different color palettes. You can see how they balance. But yet that idea of, we're talking about focus. We're talking about what is the main thing you need to see. In the card Pounce by Lucas Graciana, the focal point is not the card. The focal point is someone in front, maybe casting the spell. And the pounce is in the background. Remember, this is card size, so 2 inch by 3 inches. You're going to see bright colored dino.
Yep.
You're going to see the foreground woman casting the spell, obviously with pointing with her sword of what is to happen.
Yep.
And he has two things that you're supposed to look at in a 2-inch by 3-inch area, and only by seeing the full art can you actually see what they're pouncing on.
Right.
So we're seeing this of, okay, the vampire is killing the pirate, but vampires are also fighting the Sun Empire. This idea that the conquistadors are one against everybody. Nobody's aligning with the vampires. As we talked before, originally, conquistadors did have allies. They had local tribes and things that helped them or usurped things. Here, they have no allies. No one's helping them. Nope. No one likes them. And I like seeing that, to say that there isn't a local presence of vampires. It's not like they're rallying a scouting group and meeting up with them again on the boats. Like, they're just going in live into the forest, and they're getting smoked.
Oh, they're getting smoked because their little horses are no match for the giant birds, right? That's the idea. Real quick, let's go rapid fire. Who are the 3 artists in Magic right now that can paint horses, right? Because Lucas can compose this scene, and he can do it with just the Conquistador, but he wants to take it a step further and say, what happens if the Conquistador is knocked off his horse and the horse is on top of him and he's running away from this dino? Like, that's confidence in your abilities. No one paints a horse on accident. It's not possible. They're so damn hard to paint horses.
They're very, very, very difficult to paint. It's the art test.
Yes, it is.
It is the art test. Can you paint a figure? Okay. Can you put a figure in a scene? Okay. Mm-hmm. Can you put a figure talking to another figure or interacted with them? Okay. Can you make one person on a horse, another person not on a horse, and they're interacting and it looks good? And it is so hard.
That's the canyon right there. That is the canyon between amateur and pro.
That's the magic level. Like, can you show someone on a horse talking to someone not on a horse, which you can see in Thalia's Lancers by David Palumbo, like 2 horses, 2 women, super awesome women, searching for a legendary card, which is now Planeswalkers, and super good. And then we get to see other people that have worked that with reference well enough that they can even obscure the form and you can understand. Seb McKinnon, Attended Knight, just shockingly good. And this was Magic 2013, so he made this 5 years ago, and he's not that old. He's a young buck.
Yep.
He's a young buck. And to see this is the art test. Can you show this as believable? Can you make it a narrative? Can you show us more than the figures? And Lucas is sitting here like, listen.
I've got 3 different figures here. I also do have a figure in the foreground, and her body language is pointing exactly what I want to show off most, which is this horse on the ground. Subtle, Lucas. I see you.
I see you. Even to the bird above her head that you're like, why did you paint that? And he's like, because I can. What?
That's right, because I can. He's traditional, mind you. So yes, Seb McKinnon. Lucas has been, he's got 3 horses recently. He had the Horse Lord and the token, right? So he's just been doing horses. You also know Karl Kopp, right? Karl Kopinski. Yep. He is the Horse King. I pointed out in my video of his work that his scenes of the Battle of Waterloo, right? Yeah, the Battle of Waterloo. 30 horses in that scene, right? It's just all armies on horses. It's just all cavalry. So Mardu Heartpiercer is another one, dude on a horse.
It's so good. It's so good.
Right, yeah. So Carl, Lucas, Seb, David Palumbo, when he gets a chance to do horse, can do horses. But other than that, man, those are the go-tos for horses right now.
You totally do. Like, even Lucas has another piece in the set that is also a vampire horse, where it flips this scene, where the Conquistador is actually defeating the dragon, which is Legion's Judgment. Okay. And these are giant pieces. These are 18 by 24, 1.5 by 2 feet paintings, big. And I like the idea that they stuck with him through that, to say, all right, we need to have them winning, and then this other time we need to have the other side winning. So it's an actual battle, not just a whooping.
Yep.
And you can clearly see which kind of vampire will win. You know, one has a lance, the other one, lance is missing, the horse isn't armored. That there are champions and that there are minor vampires too that are just, there for the fun. But I want to see more horses. I really do. I think it's an evergreen sort of creature that can work in a lot of sets. And it's a skill tester. It shows something really difficult to show, and I don't know. I think that the scenes with horses people tend to spend more time on, which gives us a better painting.
I agree. We've been talking about figures, horses, people. We have not talked about a land. I think we should end on this one. What you pointed out in your stand-up piece is Sun Petal Grove. Now, Sun Petal Grove used to be a painting, or used to be a card back in M13, I think. The Czech lands came around there. They're back again in Ixalan with new art, so Commander players can geek out on that.
Well, the OG one from your boy Jason Chan was, Magic 2010, but 2010. Sure, 2013 was the last core set it was printed, which is fair.
There we go.
So this piece is by Dimitar, new guy, Bulgarian guy, lives in Britain, very friendly, and I didn't like this piece when I first saw it.
Really? Okay.
I didn't like it at all. I will be 100% honest, because I didn't get it. Because the original is so iconic. It's so clear what it is. It's a big flower.
It's a big flower.
It's a big flower, and it's kind of an homage to a Black Lotus. Like, I see what you did there, buddy. Here, it's at card size. I'm like, it's just a landscape.
Right?
It's just a forest.
That's it. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Only by seeing the large JPEG did I really see his skill in using large brushstrokes digitally.
Yes.
In forcing you to look through the piece, not just the foreground, not just the framing elements, but to see asymmetrical landscape.
Yes.
Asymmetrical to curve. He curves your eye around into looking at what's in the background there, because this is a set icon of what we're doing.
Yep.
Obviously, in Zendikar, you're trying to find the treasure, but there's no linear way. Here, you're seeing that you need to go into the forest. You need to go in to find King Kong. You need to go in to find the one treasure you're looking for. And he did that simply by composition.
Yeah.
Evocative of the set.
There. Yeah, sure.
So you can reprint this in 100 things, and you're still like, oh yeah, it's Sun Petals, that's cool. But when it is in this set, it fits the theme.
Cool.
And
that makes sense.
That's such high level. That's a high level art description, art direction sort of feel, and I missed it. I missed it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, whatever, it's just lands. No. This feeds into it, because we, as viewer, are there going through. Instead of a pirate, we are now a vampire or a different explorer. Maybe we are Jace and Vraska right now going through.
Yep, yeah, it does invite you. It's got that perspective where it's about eye level. If you're standing in this little right next to this little stream, and you're looking and gazing into the inviting sort of timid, humid jungle, right? You get the humidity, you get a little bit of blues on top of some of these branches that really adds to this mist. And the flowers are still there. They're still there. Yes. They're small. They're smaller. They're not in your face, but the sun petal aspect is there. It's not just a forest. And like you said, I do think it is synonymous with most sets. So this is a perfect reprint. I'm glad you chose it. I do love the warm colors, and the I like that. What I appreciate about this is it is a digital piece that is trying to be digital. Like it embraces its medium entirely. It's not trying to like analog into something else. It's all sharp lines. You can tell that they're digital strokes, but when they're working together to paint this and move your eye away, then it works as its medium, which is the goal.
Yeah, I think it's very, very well done, and I hope people don't overlook it because it is so strong. I think there's an opposite piece that I think everyone is going to see in this set 1,000 times, and you bring it up because it's the opposite of what this card is.
Yes.
And that card is Walk the Plank. Walk the Plank. Everyone is going to want it. You're limited. You're going to want this card. In Constructed, it's probably going to have some playability. It's sorcery speed, but still. This thing is the opposite of that.
You're right.
It doesn't invite you, and you know what it is. All right, dude, pushed off, shark. Got it.
Yeah.
I know what's happening.
Yep.
Why this version of Walk the Plank? There are two.
That's right. There are two. So apart from just style, Christopher Muller bringing it his last piece in Magic, slam dunk.
Almost a self-portrait, mind you.
Yes, that too. That's a nice way to go out as an homage to yourself. Like, yo, I've been painting forever. I'm going to paint myself in this final piece.
What are they going to do? Not accept it?
Yeah, drop the mic. Done. Here I am forever.
But Kieran, why this one?
So I like this one. Again, I'm on this quiet motif, almost monochromatic, right? We've only got blue and black, largely. That's it. Very subdued colors. I actually like the perspective quite a bit on this one. You're not looking up towards the person falling off the plank, right? You're not taking the advantage of maybe like this omnipresent sort of viewpoint from the water. Instead, you're looking from behind. So you're a little bit higher on this ship. Maybe you're on the next level and you're seeing the demise of this dude. So what that perspective grants us is a look into the waters, right? It's not just the idea of drowning, but what matches is this sense of doom, because we know there are sharks in the waters and they're sort of forming this little current, this little whirlpool. And all those things are kind of working together with the dude pointing his sword and about to nudge him off the plank. Our subject, his head is down. He knows that this is the end for him. His arms aren't present. His arms are probably tied in front of him. So that fits into this theme of like helplessness. And because, again, this perspective from behind to above gives us a nice look into this water. So all those things are pointing right into the middle of this card. It's very symmetrical. It's very much playing into this theme of, well, this is the end for you. And I like it. I like that it's very simple in terms of the colors too. And I think that is the reason I chose this.
I like this for none of those reasons. None of those reasons. None of them. The one reason I like this piece is if you chop off the piece from right beneath the man's feet. Imagine that the arm isn't there. Think about what that looks like. It is a 1990s Magic card. It is a novel cover. Mm-hmm. It is a concept without more explanation. Yeah. We don't get to know what boat it is. We don't get to know what faction of pirate it is. We don't get to know who this is. We're assuming it's a vampire, but we don't know. That idea is very much ingrained into Magic, where it's just concept. Yeah. And not just concept being just, flowy things or like a band's charm where it doesn't really represent anything. Here, it's just hyper-focused on walking the plank.
Yep.
You get no other visual information. You get no other narrative. The only thing you know is that this has happened before, because the sharks are circling. They wouldn't do it randomly. And that's it. That's all you get. And that is amazingly restrained. And I like that. That you don't get to see that a ton. It's often, there's a lot of extra stuff going on, and here it's, no. We're going to focus in. Just this piece, quiet. Kieran, don't use a lot of colors, please. Good.
Yep. That's it. That's why I like it. I'll defend it for that reason, And you're right. It's going to be a card that everyone sees. It's probably going to be popping in foil because that water is going to pop right out. And it's a good card. I think it fits the frame. It fits the game. And you're right. It is very much the opposite of the other scenes that we've been looking at.
So of this guy, we know his fate. We know he ain't going to be around very long. But there's also a piece, another black card, also a sorcery, that the fate is unknown. And I'm wondering why you feel that is good to see, where it's ambiguous.
Yeah. All right, so this is Duress by Lucas Graciano.
Still killing it.
Lucas is paints traditionally, like we said before. This is, so the first time I saw this painting, I immediately got a sonic cue when I looked at it. This happens sometimes. You'll look at a painting and a soundtrack will cue in your head, I think that's fun when it can trigger another sense. So I was looking at this and immediately I just thought of like looking into his eyes, it was a sort of horror type violin crescendo, It was like a right? But just violins and everything is turning into dread. And I think that I love this painting so much because similarly, you can cut out 80-90% of this painting and it still sells the idea. It's all in the dude's face. right? The body language helps. You could see how helpless he is. His arms are headed,
It's the eyes. It's straight up the eyes.
It's the eyes. It's the eyes and the mangled hair. He's been out here for a long time. That to me is duress. It's not a pressure. It's a slow death, right? He is under duress. He's obviously like shipwrecked. This is what's going on here, right? Or abandoned in the sea. So this to me is the effect of the sea on a pirate or a mariner across multiple days. He's at his wit's end. His arms are very helpless. They have no muscle in them. They've given up. And the madness in his eye is really what cues those violins. And something about that sun is not hopeful. It seems like it's setting, and he's in for another night of being out there in the water.
It's the diametrically opposed colors. You get the orange and the blue, which pop, if you will, but it pops not in a good way. You see it, and you're like, ooh, that's bad. It's like a red sky up morning, sailor take warning. It's going to be like that for him forever.
That's right.
And in spells and magic, there's art rules about these. It's either before the spell happens, during the spell, immediately after, or long after.
Yeah.
And this one you have to wonder, this isn't really a casted spell, or it already happened, and there's nothing left. You're at an empty hand. You have no cards in hand. You have nothing to do. You have to just sit in your boat.
Yes. Just sit in the boat, man. That's great.
And you just gotta wait for something to save you. You need to top deck an answer.
That's
so
right.
This is you as a player when you're behind and someone playing 8-rec against you or something. And I like seeing that. I like to see the mid combat chump sort of like pump spell that creature gets bigger. It's a big mouse. Cool. Might of Volcrosa. But at the same time, there's pieces like this where it's, oh, this isn't me right now, but it's going to be me next turn if I don't cast this spell because I'm going to have to discard it.
Yes.
Good art description, good art concept, really well done. Asking a good painter to do it. And no, that is not the Avacyn Restored symbol behind him. That's the hold the oars. What are you doing?
Yeah,
which we've already heard a couple times. Like, oh, it's the symbol. There must be a reused art. And I'm like, oh, have you never been in a boat?
You've never been outside.
Never been outside. Minnesota has a lot of boats. We have like 14,000 lakes. Like, come on, people.
That's right. Everyone owns a boat, a canoe.
Or someone. You don't want to own a boat. You want a friend to own a boat. Like that's the best.
That's it.
You don't want a cabin. You want a neighbor. Because then they have to mow the lawn, and you get to go wakeboarding. Yeah.
And this canoe here is a barrel, right? It plays with the motif of a barrel. That top there, it doubles as both. So I'm gonna leave that up to my imagination and choose to ignore the anything left to his hand and imagine that he's actually just floating around in a barrel. That's fun to me.
I like that. You can see the wreckage if you look at the high res in the lower right. So obviously he's marooned down there. And
marooned. I like that word.
Yes, you would. Hopefully he gets out, but he probably won't. He's in trouble. Another piece that I actually missed going through this set, which is not the hopelessness, it's actually quite uplifting, I saw was Unknown Shores. I missed this art. I didn't see it at all. I literally did not see it. Often when I look through is basic lands and lands are some of the last things I look at. And you pointed this out, and I'm like, oh, Rob Alexander has a piece in this set? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I felt because I played pre-release last night and Unknown Shores came up and I'm like, oh man, Unknown Shores is in this set. It makes sense thematically in terms of the name, right? Unknown Shores, We're discovering this island.
Totally.
Okay, everything is groovy. I looked at this, I'm like, wait, is that Rob Alexander? I saw this from across the table. I'm like, there's no way that Rob Alexander is still in the set, and he is. This dude has been around forever. He's painted every landscape ever, right?
Basically,
so it is partially because it's an homage to a veteran artist who is still killing it in the game. That's partially why I chose it. I also really, even though this card is bad, I refuse to play it. It's just a bad card, right? It's just not a good card.
In limited, it's really good.
I don't like it.
Really?
I'm serious. I don't like cards like this in limited. I'd rather just run basics. I don't know. That's just me. All
right, welcome to having a 2-color deck and you have no options.
That's right. True. I played 3 colors last night. My mana was fine, and I had Unknown Shores in the sealed pool, but that is a different story, Michael. We're all about the taste here.
About that flavor of the art.
All about that flavor.
What is something that viewers looking at this need to see that they will miss?
What they're going to miss is the OG Theros. This showed up in Theros. It was done by Seb McKinnon. Seb conceptually killed it. Unknown Shores in that version was a bunch of seashells that are gigantic, and this traveler has... I loved this art so much that I had people send me foils of it because it was so beautiful, right? So it's sort of a reverse dialogue. I like the conversation here. Usually Lucas Graciano, a newer artist, right, gets Duress, and it's his time to shine because Duress is a known card, and Christopher Muller getting lightning bolts over Christopher Rush's old lightning bolts, right? Usually you have the newer artists get the newer version of the card.
Of the reprint, correct.
Of the reprint, exactly. So what we had was Seb killed it originally, and then we gave it to Rob Alexander. So the rookie back in 2013, 2013 was Theros, and now Rob Alexander, the veteran, gets another shot at the reprint. Like, that to me is a really cool conversation. So apart from that, visually we do have the pirate ship. It makes sense. Rob Alexander's sort of signature mossy, rocky sort of constructs, right? That's him to a T. You knew that. I knew that from across the table. And the subtle hint of a rainbow makes sense, right?
Yeah,
it's not in your face.
It's over the top at large scale art. Like, if you see like the full JPEG, you're like, ooh, hell, there's a rainbow. But mind you, 2 by 3 inches card art box, Rob knows exactly what shows up and what doesn't.
Yep, he does.
He gets that. So I like seeing that part kind of thrown in to be like, oh yeah, remember, it's a rainbow piece, just FYI, is a fun thing. I like seeing that he's being pushed by maybe some of the younger artists that are, I don't know, maybe working through the landscapes to make them more unique looking. So right here on the right side, we see a giant, like, I don't know, boulder butte of sorts, where it's cut out on the bottom.
Yep.
Or on the left side, there's giant rock formations coming out. That's unusual, and it gives it the fantasy feel rather than just showing a realistic painting.
Yep. And
we're seeing a lot of that with Raul Vitale. He's really pushing that to say, all right, I'm going to give you realism, but I'm going to make sure the fantasy gets in there too. Whereas Rob would be much more realistic with things. You're right. Much more, this is a waterfall. Where in Kamigawa you can see that exactly. So you can see older artists getting inspired by some young bucks. Same as Todd Lockwood seeing Lucas Graciano, trying to upstage him, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm not worried about people my age, I'm worried about the young guys. Yeah. And I like seeing that, and it shows up in paintings if you look for it.
That's right. And, I was happy to see the Unknown Shores was not my favorite in the Zendikar version. It's a bias again. I loved the first one, and now I love the third one, so it was just good to see. It's a very pleasant image.
And anytime there's a reprint, I like new art. Everybody does. People want to see it if it's reprinted in Commander to have a new theme that you can add to different decks. Here, now I can put Unknown Shores in a pirate deck, and it feels right.
Yeah, Duress as well, right?
Totally. Like, it feels correct in that group. And those casual players do look for those. I mean, it's the same price. It's a quarter or 10 cents or whatever. But being able to choose those gives you the option to customize your deck, which, we Vorthos folk, all about that flavor, want more options. So when people say, I want to reprint Snapcaster, as you did a video on, having more options is actually the best choice for the game.
Yep. Every time.
100% every single time. So I like seeing things like this. I want the core set to be able to do that as well. We see it in Conspiracy, and you get to see the placement there. But the core set, I want that to be next.
The core. You're right. The core set should be a place where artists can have a lot more free will. It should be a playground for artists, because you're not constrained. I know that the next core set is going to be more world building like Origins was, so they're going to stay closer to their brand. But I'm with you there. I hope there's still some space for the artist to just say, hey, this is your prompt. Maybe this is your card name. Do what you want with it.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic thing for us as players. That is quiet, subtle. People don't notice it until like 3 years down the road, and they're like, "Did you know this foil is worth $3?" Those people, and usually it'll be some sort of random person bringing it up, and you're like, why is that? Well, did you look at the art? Look at how cool it is. And that's why it's a little more valuable than others. So
totally.
All about those things. Other than
we're
that,
all about that taste.
We're all about that taste here. I mean, I'm out of the stellar hits that I really wanted to touch on. I'm happy to see the set. I like that it's a departure from the dark. It's very bright, which they tend to go back and forth. Theros, bright. Shadows of Innistrad, dark. You know, they tend to flip-flop on those all the time, just differentiating the card when you actually play it and construct it, and to give you a better feel of what it is. Closing thoughts, Sam, do you got anything else?
The closing thoughts are really, I'm with you there. I like about 30% of the art here. I really love. The other art is good. It's just not my flavor. It's not my taste. It's not my jam. Lots of colors.
Maybe you don't put cinnamon in your spaghetti. Some people do. It changes it to be. It's more nutty flavored. It's good.
That's right.
But it does have the greatest variety of sets we've seen in a very long time visually. I mean, Merfolk looks nothing like the vampire cards. I mean, they don't look like they're in the same set, which is awesome.
You're right. And goblin monkeys, is that a thing? Monkey goblins?
Monkey
is that
goblins.
What's going on? Was that Steve Prescott? You have to think that was probably Steve, right?
You'd hope that he just brought it up and he's like, listen. Belladin's like, I'm going to give you these gremlins, and they're going to become artifact dogs. What if we did it with monkey goblins? What do you think?
Right. What do you think? Like, it works. It just makes sense.
They're in line getting a coffee, and they're like, listen, monkey goblin, what do you think?
That's
you
right.
Win?
What do you think?
You win?
we need more familiars. We need more pirates with the monkey goblin on their shoulder, or birds, right? That's what's missing.
Yeah,
I hope we see that soon in the next Ixalan set.
Would be phenomenal. And it snuck in there with a few pieces, but I'm all for that.
That's right. Well, Mike, you're all about that taste. Where can we find you for some more flavor?
Sure, we'll be discussing this probably days after, weeks after on the Twitters. I'm at Vorthos Mike. You can try to butcher my last name and get close enough, but you don't need to. Find me and ask me about things. I love talking about art, or people even trying to find prints of these things. We'll connect people to artists as long as they ask nice. Sam, where can we follow up with you on these? Like, if we go in the comments, will you respond?
I'm going to respond to about 30%. That's my quota. Yeah. You can, hopefully you're within that 30%. No, I'm kidding. Of course, we can talk. Hit me with them DMs. Give me your favorite piece of arts. You know how we do on my YouTubes. I am the Magic Man Sam on YouTube. I am at Rhystic Studies on Twitter, and those are the two hubs, man. Other than that, I'm really not on social media anymore, and it feels good. Twitter, though, is my jam. So we're going to stay on Twitter. We'll talk on Twitter about art. I'm going to retweet Mike and all the other artists. Follow them. Get into it. Art review out?
Outro music.
Outro music.